everyone. I'm Sanjana, J&J's Fireside Chat Coordinator, and I'm here with Erin for another Fireside Chat. Erin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
All right, so let's jump into it. Please tell us about your educational and professional backgrounds and the path that you took to get to where you are today.
So I am an attorney for a big pharmaceutical company called Sanofi. And I actually grew up in California, even though I'm in New Jersey now. So the path involves some cross-country movement. I went to undergraduate at the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA, go Bruins. And then I came east for law school at Harvard Law School. And after that, I started my career working for a judge in New York City, and then for a big law firm in New York City. And about 7 years ago, I moved in-house to be at Sanofi.
That's amazing, and congratulations on Harvard. That's crazy.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I actually feel like some of the craziest piece about that was moving to the East Coast. I grew up in the Bay Area, and so I thought I knew, like I'd gone to Tahoe to ski. I thought I knew what cold was, but I really didn't know until moving to Boston.
Yeah, it can be brutal. I'm from Jersey, so I'm definitely familiar with that.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, please.
So I was just going to move on to our next question, which is, did you have any significant extracurricular experiences in high school or college that you feel really helped you later on in your career?
Yeah, I think honestly, the thing that was probably the most formative, and I didn't even realize it at the time, it was volunteering for an organization for children with chronic and fatal skin diseases. I became a camp counselor and became really involved with the foundation, and I'm actually still involved today. It's been, I mean, now I'm old, so it's been like, 15, 20 years or something like that. But I feel like that just gave me a much broader sense of things that are happening outside myself, outside my world, and sort of inspired me to be interested in expanding not only my skill set, but also, again, like my worldview and what I was tapped into. And even though in my legal career, I actually didn't pursue initially healthcare, when I ultimately found myself working for a healthcare company, I feel like I actually ended up drawing on so much of what I learned from that experience early in my life, not only in terms of coming from a place of empathy, but even from understanding, different health conditions and in particular in the sort of skin disease space.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think any volunteer initiative like that is just very important to take. It helps you like just build your experience, and it's a great thing to do early on. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I'd also say you never, I mean, like at each point in your life when you're making a decision, right? Where do you volunteer or don't you volunteer? What do you volunteer for? Do you go to this school and do this program or another one? It's easy to kind of have like analysis paralysis or get scared of making the wrong decision. But the truth is, you really never know how something you do is going to end up informing your choices, your options, and your decisions later. So I would just say, like, take the plunge, dive in, and try out lots of different things when you're young and when you can, because you really don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. That was a great piece of advice. And speaking of advice, my last question for you is, what advice would you give to young people who will be embarking on their professional lives soon?
Yeah, I mean, I think just that. I think actually young people or people earlier in their careers do a better job of this often than people who perhaps are later in their careers but new to a position. But just come open and eager to learn, ask lots of questions. I think it can be hard because sometimes when you are in a new environment, you want to impress people and you want to establish yourself and you want to show what you know. But in fact, the most impressive thing, and I have to remind myself of this, is to do more listening than talking and ask more questions than you're giving answers, because those questions can really show how insightful you are. And maybe you don't know, maybe you ask a question thinking you know what the answer is, and in fact the answer is not that at all. So that's what I would say. Just go in, and it's very rare that people are going to say, oh, I'm sorry, you're asking too many questions. Kind of can't do that. Not enough questions usually.
That's true. And honestly, that's something I got to think about too. It's easy to just kind of like be quiet and like sit in the back of the classroom and that type of thing. But you're right. It's definitely very important to ask questions and show that initiative.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, obviously be true to yourself too, right? I mean, some people are more comfortable, I think, listening and learning in that way. I also think that actually did make me think of something else, which is just try and seek out the environments or the sort of scenarios that you feel are going to be best suited to your success. And what I mean there is some people might be very comfortable in large groups and may be comfortable asking questions. Again, in a classroom, there's a lot of other people, but again, like even in your classes today, right, you might not feel comfortable raising your hand or making a comment or question with like 100 other people in the room, but perhaps going to office hours for your TA or for the professor, you could have more of a dialogue. So don't, think about all the different avenues available to you that might be best suited for your learning style and your personality type, because there's a lot out there that you can hopefully leverage.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that advice. And thank you overall for this great session. I took a lot out of it. I'm sure everyone who views it will too. So thanks.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.